Dear children, this is Father Derek Fernandez, the Parish Priest of St. John the Baptist Church, Pilihan, Bardez, Goa. Now we are at the last week of the Advent, the fourth week, and I'm sure all of you are busy preparing the crib. Before that, I want to ask you one question. How did a crib originate, or who brought the crib? Now, for your information, it was Saint Francis de Assisi who went to Jerusalem when in the year 2023 that Saint Francis de Assisi built the first crib, and he was inspired by his visit to Jerusalem. He went to Jerusalem and he was inspired when he saw the birthplace of Jesus. When he came back to his place, he was inspired, so he made the first crib. And now, from then onwards, we have mankind has modified the crib. And today's theme, both the readings, the first and the Gospel, speaks about the dwelling place of God. The first reading, I would take you to a famous biblical personality, King David. Now, in the first reading, David wants to build a house for God. He has brought the Ark of Covenant, where God is to reside, and he lives in a palace, and he feels little bad because he lives in a palace and God is there in a tent in the Ark of the Covenant. So he tells Nathan that he wants to build a temple. And we know God tells Nathan to tell David not to build, because God himself will like to come and reside in the temple. It's not that God did not want a house, but God didn't want David to build the temple. And we know in history it was David's son Solomon who built the temple. So what was in the temple? The temple, it contained two parts. The first part contained the altar, where the burnt offerings where the priest was offered, and the second part was the Holy of Holies, where the Ark of Covenant was kept. And these two parts were separated by a veil. And we know in the book of Exodus, God himself gives the description of the temple to be built, how the Ark of Covenant should be made. So we know God takes the first step to come and dwell in among the humans. The same thought is continued in the Gospel, where God takes the initiative in choosing his Son, in choosing Mother Mary to be a modern Ark of Covenant for the birth of Jesus. You know, the Ark of Covenant was God's presence. So also Mary becomes the modern Ark of Covenant, where Jesus himself will reside in her womb for 9 months. And we know from the Gospel today, though Mary is perplexed, we know when the angel Gabriel gives her a proof of her own cousin Elizabeth conceiving and bearing a child, John the Baptist, Mary is fully convinced that it is by the act of God. And at the Annunciation in the Gospel, the scenes of Annunciation, though in the beginning Mary is disturbed, But when the angel assures her that everything has taken place by the power of God, she said yes. And the salvation of the history of salvation begins with Mary's yes. My dear friends, my dear children, just I want you to look at a crib. If you have a look at a crib that you make, let the crib remind us of God chose a place to dwell among humans. No one gave him a place, and he had to be born in a stable. So first of all, the crib signifies the nothingness of our God. God, who usually resides in heaven, comes down and he takes birth in a crib, in a manger, among the animals, in the field. So my dear children, what I want to tell you is about our life sometimes. We have high hopes about ourselves or high ambitions, but we know once we realize our nothingness, we cannot achieve what we want. Meaning, nothingness from I am nothing. Everything depends on God. Everything belongs to God. The first thing. And the second thing, reflection on the crib. Let the crib remind us of the unity or the salvation that God came to bring. The second reading tells us to thank God for all the blessings that God has sent upon us, and also for revealing the mystery of salvation through Jesus Christ. And this is the same mystery that is revealed in the crib, that God became man in order to serve, in order to save every one of us, to save humankind from sin. So this is the happiest moment for us, because we know that Jesus will not be born in a stable, but his birth will take place in our hearts. So my dear children, let us prepare an abode for our Lord. And the first thing I would say is, go for a confession. That's the best place you can prepare our heart. Maybe focusing on some bad habits or evil tendencies that we have. And the second thing I would say, respect the house of God, because that's a dwelling place. The third thing I would say is, spend time before the Blessed Sacrament, because we know God's presence is there. Just as God's presence was there in the Ark of Covenant in the Old Testament, so also the tabernacle signifies the real presence of our Lord. So let these three things be help for you to revere the house of God, the dwelling place of God.